ago, Warrington mum Vera Anderson dropped her 7-year-old son out of a neighbour's and went out. Hours later, she was found murdered.
She was a lovely woman. She was very generous and kind-hearted. I couldn't understand why anyone would want to hurt her.
In the early hours of Sunday, the 25th of August 1991, Vera Anderson was found murdered. Her body was discovered in her car in the Penketh area of Warrington. Cheshire Constabulary launched a massive investigation, turning to Crimewatch for help.
Well, now to our final reconstruction. Did you know Vera Anderson? Vera had many friends, but certainly no enemies as far as anyone knows.
The main focus in the investigation was to try and establish Vera Anderson's movements once she'd left her home address.
The Crimewatch reconstruction showed the places Vera may have visited.
There was some information, a possible sighting of her at the Crown and Cushion pub, and there was a whole load of enquiries done around the Crown and Cushion and a possible sighting of Vera Anderson with a man in the pub on that evening. Unfortunately, as a result of extensive enquiries, the identity of that male came to nothing.
30 years later, the identity of Vera's killer remains a mystery. Now retired, former Detective Sergeant Gary Massey has returned to the case as a civilian investigator.
My interest in this case has built over the 7 or 8 years that I have been reviewing it, and I have invested a lot of time in trying to identify who was responsible and bring justice for the family of Vera Anderson.
Vera's whereabouts the day she was killed are still unknown.
Vera Anderson received a phone call sometime before 10 p.m. on Saturday, the 24th of August 1991. Following that phone call, it prompted her to leave her home address. She left her young son with a next-door neighbour.
Will you have Neil for 10 minutes?
Emptied the contents of the boot of her car, which was a blue Ford Cortina, and drove away from her home address. At 3:15 the following morning, Vera Anderson's body was found in a car at an old disused tannery site in the Penketh area of Warrington.
Requesting supervision. Found her body in a vehicle.
30 years ago, the site where Vera's body was found looked much different than it does today.
In 1991, to my right, was an enormous industrial tannery complex. That's now been demolished and a housing estate exists.
Vera's daughter, Lorraine, was 19 at the time and still vividly remembers the day she lost her mum.
Got woken up on the Sunday morning by 2 CIDs standing at the door. It was very difficult. I just felt so alone, to be honest. And I thought, what am I going to do? But I just got on with it. No choice. I was more upset about my brother, really, losing my mum, because he was only 7. And he idolised my mother. We had to sit him down and tell him that his mummy was never coming back. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Lorraine still lives in the area and now has a family of her own.
It's still very difficult, obviously, because the killer hasn't been caught. It's just really not got any easier. I've learnt to live with it now, but I haven't forgot about it in any way.
Gary believes there's still hope of finding the killer, and one lead in particular has kept his attention.
A member of the public who resided to the rear of the site believes he saw Vera Anderson's car on the tannery site around about 11 p.m. At approximately 11:15 p.m. on the night of Vera Anderson's murder, A witness was travelling along Tannery Lane when a car emerged from the service road where Vera Anderson's body was later found. The car is described as a brown hatchback-type vehicle.
Police still want to trace the driver of the brown car. And for Lorraine and her family, getting answers are as important now as they ever were.
It's a long time to hold on to something for so long. I just don't understand how anyone could do such a thing. It's never going to be forgotten. I'm still going to have it on my mind. And until the killer's caught, I don't think I'm going to be able to rest. I feel like it's me living the life sentence.
A tragic case that left 2 children without a mum. Absolutely heartbreaking. Well, joining us now by video call is Detective Inspector Adam Waller, who's investigating Vera's murder. Good morning, Adam. First of all, could you talk us through what happened to Vera in August 1991?
Good morning, thank you. All murders are tragic, but this one was particularly inexplicably brutal. It's left a lasting memory for many officers, both retired and still serving within Cheshire Constabulary. We know that Vera left her home address in Widnes, which is not far from Warrington, just after 10 p.m. on Saturday the 24th of August 1991, having asked her neighbour to mind her son Neil, who was just 7 years old at the time. It's believed that Vera only intended to be out for about 10 minutes, and it was extremely out of character for her not to come home as she promised. There were no further confirmed sightings of Vera after she drove out of her estate until a body was found in her car at around 3:15 a.m. the following morning at this disused Tannery building site, which is just off Tannery Lane in Penketh back in the day. Vera had suffered devastating neck injuries and had died at the scene.
It's really terrible. Adam, tell us a bit about what Vera was like, and can you think of any reason at all why somebody would want to hurt her?
It's really apparent from the huge amount of inquiries conducted with Vera's family and friends that she was a popular, likeable and family-orientated lady. She was very sociable, extremely close to her family, and her 2 children meant the world to her. And despite extensive inquiries into Vera's background, the victimology as we call it, the motive for her killing remains unclear. And this must be hugely upsetting for her family, as there's just no sense as to what's happened to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the crime scene looks very different today, doesn't it? We've got a map of how it looked then versus how it looks now. And you're asking people to cast their memories back, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm really keen to speak to anyone that may have been passing the scene at Tannery Lane, particularly those that have never been spoken to by the police back in the early 90s, or perhaps has remembered something they didn't previously mention. We know that there were many people at the nearby Ferry Tavern pub just down the road from the scene that may have driven or walked past the scene. And similarly, we know there were lots of people at the Fiddler's Ferry Social Club, which is nearby also. So anyone, staff or customers alike, that have never been spoken to by an investigation may have crucial information, and I'd be really keen for them to get in touch with my team.
Tell us a bit more about Vera's movements on the night that she was killed.
Well, we've got some big gaps, as you've seen. We know that Vera drove out of her estate just after 10 p.m, 10 past 10, thereabouts, but it's not clear where she was between then and when her body was found at 3:15 a.m, some 5 hours later. It's possible that her car arrived at the scene between 10:45 and 11 p.m, as there was a vehicle seen in exactly the same position at around 11 p.m.
Adam, we can see Vera's car on the screen now. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I can't rule out that vehicle at 11 p.m. was Vera's vehicle, or was it something similar? But it certainly looked similar. And there was also a potential sighting of Vera in the nearby Crown and Cushion pub in Penketh at around 10:30 p.m. And that sighting was with an unidentified man. Again, it's important to stress that wasn't a confirmed sighting, albeit the description was very similar in terms of clothing and physical appearance of Vera.
But there is a new lead, isn't there, that you're really interested in?
Yeah, from the videos you've seen and from a detailed review of investigative material, a number of witnesses have been re-interviewed, and it appears that there's been a sighting of a brown hatchback car in the vicinity of the scene just after 11 p.m. on the 24th of August. It was leaving the service road, as we've described, We don't know the exact make and model of that car, but from the descriptions that have been offered, we think it's something similar to a Mark I Vauxhall Astra, a Mitsubishi Colt, Talbot Horizon, or a Datsun Cherry, that sort of size and shape of vehicle in brown. We've never managed to trace the vehicle of that driver. So again, anyone that can offer any information around people that had that sort of vehicle that they may have had some suspicion about, but just have never put the piece of the jigsaw in, then again, my team would be really keen to speak to them.
And finally, we heard from Vera's daughter Lorraine in the film there. She feels like she's been living a life sentence. What do you think it would mean, Adam, to the family to finally find out who killed Vera?
I can't emphasise enough how brutal this murder was. For 30 years, Vera's children have suffered the angst of not knowing why their mum was killed or by whom. A young son was left without a mother. Vera's missed out on seeing her grandchildren grow up, and birthdays, Christmases, marriages, etc. And I know there isn't a day that goes by where Vera's daughter Lorraine doesn't think about her mum. They're desperate for closure, justice, and the answer to many unanswered questions. So we're extremely keen for anyone that has any information to get in touch. I'm convinced that there's someone out there that knows the identity of the killer, and it's unlikely that that killer hasn't told anyone about it.
Adam.
Someone may have harboured this secret for 30 years. They may have felt unable to tell the police about what they know and who, and I'd urge them to get in touch in order to help Vera's family be put out of their misery.
Thank you so much, Adam, for joining us this morning. So, were you in Penketh in Warrington in 1991, and did you or someone else you know drive a brown hatchback car? Vera's family have been waiting for justice for 30 long years. They need to know what happened and why.